Hello, and welcome to Live Calm by SOULESTA Living, the podcast where each week we explore practical ways to bring calm to your mind, body, home, and relationships, the four pillars of my Calm Compass framework. I'm your host, Keeley Cherie, calmness coach and founder of SOULESTA Living. So, whether you are an entrepreneur, a busy professional, or just someone who is ready to prioritize your peace, this podcast is your guide to living your best, calmer, healthier, and happier life. Let's dive into today's episode. So, today our focus is relationships, and we're talking about an aspect of the relationship that you have with yourself, the transformative power of self love and its impact on our physical, mental, and emotional well being. So, if you didn't know, January is actually Self Love Month, and it's the perfect time to explore how self love connects with calmness and your overall health. So, first, we're going to start with what self love is. So, self love is the practice of accepting, respecting, and caring for yourself on a deep level. So, it's not just what you might see online, people taking a bubble bath, having a spa day. It's really about more of the day to day things like setting boundaries, nourishing your body with healthy food, speaking kindly to yourself. And on that point, I love a quote by Brene Brown. She is an amazing author and professor whose work centers around shame and vulnerability. She's also a Texas girl like me. Hey, Brene. So she has this beautiful quote that says, "Talk to yourself like you would someone you love." So a lot of times we might say things to ourselves that we would not say to a friend or a sibling or family member or someone we care about. So we have to keep those things in mind when we are talking to ourselves. So basically, when I think about self love, I think about how am I prioritizing and showing up for myself every day. So I had a quote on my vision board last year that said, "This year, choose yourself." And all throughout the year, I kept that in mind when I had opportunities that came up to shed a lot of relationships that were not serving me throughout the year. And this for me was my act of self love. So it might look different for you. And you just have to keep in mind those ways of how you can show yourself self love. But a lot of times, there are many reasons that some people struggle with self love, um, and this could be due to a lot of different factors that I'm going to share. So first, starting with childhood and past experiences. Surprise, surprise, things from childhood coming back up in adulthood. So, childhood trauma, criticism, or neglect can impact our self worth. So, this is important for us to acknowledge. Some of us might have been conditioned to take care of others and put others first and ourselves last. So I'm going to speak a little bit from experience here. So I recently was on a panel where I talked a little bit about how my therapist linked me growing up too fast and taking care of my siblings from the age of 11. And when I say taking care of, I mean overnight taking care of, no adult in the house when I was 11 overnight, getting up, getting kids up ready for school, hair, breakfast, lunch, all the things. So I did not realize that that actually had a term called being parentified, which is when you're growing up at too young of an age when you're younger and how that manifests when you're older. Well, how that manifested for me is that I took on the identity of a caregiver, and pretty much defaulted to always putting everyone else's needs before my own. So it took me a while to really cultivate self love for myself in putting myself and my needs first before other people without feeling like I was a bad person. I was also listening to a podcast recently from a male perspective, and this man was talking about how he didn't have trauma relating to his parents. Like he had wonderful, loving parents, but it was actually a sports coach in school that demeaned him and made him feel less than, and that really stuck with him into adulthood. So I say all this to say these are things to just keep in mind, as we are going through our day-to-day life. Are there things in the back of our mind from past challenges that we have that are still showing up and still things that we need to work through? There's also cultural expectations. So I have a really culturally diverse background. My mom is a Jamaican immigrant. My dad is African American from Alabama, and my stepdad, who was in my life from the time of age 4 till when he passed away when I was going into my last year of high school. My stepdad was white. And so I grew up seeing a lot of different cultural dynamics. So, starting with the immigrant side, anyone who is from an immigrant family might be able to relate to this because I feel like in some ways they're similar. But they very much had a culture of taking care of the family first, even before your own personal or individual needs. Sometimes it kind of felt like a what have you done for me lately type thing. Like if you did something, it's like, okay, now this is the new week. You got to do something else for me. And I definitely had times when I questioned my own worth within my family, wondering, do I have value on my own just for existing, or is it what I can do for you? At times, I feel like it felt like the love was very conditional. Like if I do this thing, then, will I receive that love? Or if I don't do this thing, are you going to guilt trip me and then take it away? So those were things that I had to work through within myself and with family. So I'm not saying at all that you should not support your family. We all need each other's help from time to time, but make sure that that help is not at the detriment to you and yourself, because there are some people out there that will drain you dry if you let them and deplete you. And so, all I'm saying is that you have to find harmony within that. And what can you do to first fill your cup up before you are trying to pour into everyone else? Because if you are down, then you really can't give to anyone else anyway. So just things that I've had to work through myself, coming from seeing that on that side of my family. Then the American side can have a similar effect, but in a different way. So the American side can be a little bit more still family oriented, but a little bit more individualistic, but also strong on achieve, achieve, achieve. And so my dad on my American side had several degrees, several college degrees, and he was laser focused on education and achievement. And he had me reading college level thick books that I should not have even been looking at and reading when I was in elementary school, like on real estate, anatomy, all different types of topics. And I mean, like before I was in second grade. But this put me on what I feel like is that just hamster wheel of achievement to just keep going, going, going. And there were times when I questioned, will I be, worthy of love if I don't achieve this thing or get all A's or whatever it was? And my dad was really bent on me doing something in medicine because I told him I think when I was in elementary school, early elementary school, that I wanted to be a doctor because I did have a passion for helping to heal people. But I don't know that it had to be that traditional route of medicine, but he never let go of it. And when I got to college, I said, okay, well, I don't think I'm cut out to go the full way to be a doctor, but I think I'm going to go into nursing. And I could handle, like the gory things and seeing blood and all of that stuff associated with nursing, but I am so empathetic that I could not turn my emotions on and off in trying to deal with people who were sick. I was just so sad every day. And it was not a profession that works for me. Like the people who do that work, like, bless you for sure. You're amazing humans, but it just was not something that emotionally I could take on as a profession to do every day. But I was so afraid to tell my dad that I did not want to be something in medicine instead of, going on to decide what it is I wanted to do. I was trying to put his desires first. But eventually I did make the decision to put my desires first. And even though he was disappointed initially, eventually he let it go and he was just happy about all that I had accomplished so far. So that was one of the earlier times when I, decided to put myself first and kind of bet on myself in that way and just see what happens. And if I disappointed my family, then, it is what it is. But at least I knew that I could be happy with the way that I was living my life every day. There's also societal expectations, not just family. So sometimes there's just these pressures from society that emphasize perfection and doing things a certain way and in a certain order and all of that. And a really great book for this is going back to Brene Brown, who I mentioned earlier. She has a book called The Gifts of Imperfection. And I actually have it here because I have read it and I keep it in my bedroom next to my nightstand. I need to reread it again. But I will include the link in the show notes of this episode. And it talks about how perfectionism is actually rooted in fear, which, wow, was so amazing. Like for me to hear that connection, because sometimes you don't think about it in that way of you are fearing um, showing up as not having it all together and what are people going to think, but in reality nobody has everything together and we have to be able to give ourselves the grace, and sometimes we weren't given grace growing up or shown grace, so it's hard for us to give it to ourselves, but it's something we really have to work through so that we don't put so much unnecessary pressure on ourselves. There's also comparison culture. So social media, it just creates this unrealistic standard again of perfection that can lead you feeling like you're not enough. And you just have to know that a lot of the time people are just showing you their highlight reels, but there are some people who do share when they're in their messy middle is a term that I hear a lot these days, or sharing vulnerability about what it might have taken them to get to where they are. And I love those posts, the ones that are more real about their journey, that helps you feel like, okay, they're a normal person just like me. I am still doing okay for where I'm at, instead of thinking like, oh, they're all the way here and I'm just over here and I don't can't even see how I'm going to get to there. That's not really helpful for any of us, because we don't always see the entire picture in that person's journey. And you may see them 7 years down the road and not even know all of what they went through to get to where they are. And so just know that each person's journey is unique to them. And we all should appreciate where we are. But if there are accounts or people that you follow where you look at them and you feel bad all the time, there's nothing wrong with muting a person for a while or unfollowing an account. I've had to do this if there's things where you're just like, oh, okay, well, um, I just feel bad like every time I'm looking at this person, like how are they doing all of these things? How do they have a family and kids? And it seems like they're sharing content all the time. If again, those people sometimes have more support than people who are single and by themselves and support that you don't see. So just stay in basically your lane and yeah, don't put too much pressure on yourself and in comparing yourself to anybody else's life but your own. And then there's also limiting beliefs. So these are internalized negative thoughts that we have. So if you're saying to yourself, you're not good enough, that can impact your self acceptance. So a lot of us can be our own worst critic. And you may think that putting yourself or your needs first are selfish or if it makes you self-centered. And this is something that is learned. You don't just wake up and think that way. So one of the things that helps me is that if I start feeling negativity or hearing something that's negative, like you can't do this or you can't do that, um, go back and see if you can pay attention to if you can hear if it's a certain person's voice that you're hearing. So it could be, again, going back to the earlier example of the guy with the coach whose voice was in his head. It could be a critical parent or a former partner or anyone that maybe has made you feel like you weren't worthy. So I just encourage if that is happening to you on a regular basis or if at all, um, try to replace it with a positive affirmation and just say something simple. And this is something that I say to myself as well. I love and accept myself. I am worthy just the way I am. So it's like, regardless of whether you did another thing or if what you do later today doesn't turn out perfectly, I love and accept myself. I am worthy just as I am, is what it is. Another helpful resource is the book, The Four Agreements. So I don't have it because I listened to that one on audio, but I will also include a link to that one in the show notes. The very first agreement in that book is be impeccable with your words. And it's not just with your words to other people, it's also with your words towards yourself and not to speak negatively towards yourself. So that book is an amazing book, life changing. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz and Janet Mills. So again, I will link that one in the show notes. Everybody should read it. And lastly, another issue that has us struggling with self-love is overworking. And so this is constantly prioritizing working over your needs, and this can lead to burnout and self-neglect. So coming from a former workaholic, this is a big one. Someone once told me when I was back in my corporate life that people did not respect my time because I don't respect my time. So you have to look at what you're allowing people to do and not always, sometimes people are it's justified a little bit in the way that people treat you. But what, again, it also goes to what you allow to have happen. And again, you have to have enough self-love for yourself to put those boundaries in place, especially at work, which is impacting a lot of our days from day to day. And then if you are overworking, you don't have enough time to sit with yourself, be with yourself, process your thoughts and feelings and emotions, and check in with what's really going on with you. So, also, I would say not to use work to avoid really being with yourself and checking in with your emotions. So, next, I want to talk about how self love benefits your physical and mental health. So, starting with the physical, so when we are prioritizing self compassion, we are also taking care of our bodies. So, people who typically are practicing self love are more likely to make healthier lifestyle choices. So, if you are prioritizing yourself, that means you're going to eat better. You're not going to want to, I'm an everything in moderation girl, but you're not going to want to have like bad food every single day. You also are likely to exercise more. You're likely to prioritize getting better sleep every night. There's also an article from positivepsychology.com that suggests that self compassion helps individuals stick to health goals without guilt. So, emphasis on the without guilt. Okay. And acts of self love, such as mindful breathing, meditative cooking, that activates your parasympathetic nervous system, and that helps your entire body with relaxation and recovery. Then self-love also has a lot of benefits for your mental health. It naturally fosters calmness because it is reducing you having that self-criticism and improving your ability to regulate your emotions. And there was also a study from selfcompassion.org that shows that practicing self-compassion can decrease your stress and anxiety, and also decreases the risk of burnout and enhances resilience. So, by treating yourself with kindness, you can better handle the life challenges that are being thrown at you day to day. So, lastly, I want to give you some steps to start your self love journey. So, number one, acknowledge your worth. So reflect on the things that make you unique and valuable. And this reminds me of one of my favorite quotes on my wall in my home office, which is, in order to be irreplaceable, one must be unique. And that's by Coco Chanel. So I'm sorry. Let me say it again. In order to be irreplaceable, one must be unique, by Coco Chanel. So we don't want to be replaceable. We want to be irreplaceable. So our differences and the things that make us unique are special. And number two, so create self-love rituals. So dedicate time and activities that bring you joy and peace. So figure out what are these things that you can do on a regular basis that bring you joy. Every day I do a sunset walk, and that helps me transition from my workday. And then it helps me to process my thoughts from the day. And so that gives me a lot of peace after I've been working. So, what are those things, rituals that you can build into your day each day? Um, Number three, having a gratitude practice. So you can write down three things that you love about yourself each day, or say them to yourself. I have a gratitude journal that I journal in pretty almost daily. I could journal in consistently, but yeah, it is a great thing to, because we can always find things that are wrong. But I, love keeping a gratitude journal because no matter how hard the day was, there's always something to be grateful for. And there's always something to be grateful for about ourselves as well. And number four is saying no without guilt. So again, that without guilt piece. So we all need to protect our energy by setting healthy boundaries. And number five, start a daily affirmation practice. So again, this is to reinforce the positive self-talk to ourselves. So I have just the simple one. I love and accept myself. I am worthy just the way I am. And then number six, embrace your imperfections. So there needs to be a good amount of self-forgiveness that we all should have. and for us to forgive ourselves for any mistakes that we made, because we're going to make mistakes. We don't know everything. And just give yourself a little bit more grace when you are approaching challenges and any new experiences. So I love the Maya Angelou quote that says, "Do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better." So we're all just out there doing the best we can. And that actually ties into the fourth agreement in the Four Agreements book, which is always do your best. And again, that book will be linked in the show notes. And some days when I am writing in my journal every morning, setting my intentions, some days I just say, today I'm going to do my best. Like you can't control the outcomes of certain things, but you can rest easy at night knowing that you did your absolute best that day. And number 7, professional counseling. So if you feel like you could use even more support in this area than you have the capacity to do on your own, then I would recommend professional counseling. And I do have a therapist and mental health professional directory on my website of therapists and mental health professionals, like psychologists and all of that, that I have met in person that I can personally vouch for. And you can find that on my website at soulestaliving.com. And number 8 is mindful eating. So I am coming to you from my kitchen today. So treat meal preparation and eating as acts of love and mindfulness. And yes, so speaking of mindful eating, for those of you who are local to the Houston area, the ladies who might be interested in joining me, I would like to invite you to the Recipe for Self-Love sushi making class that I am doing next Wednesday, February 5th at Well Done Cooking Classes. So this is in the Memorial Spring Branch area of town if you are in Houston. So this is going to be a hands-on workshop where we'll be combining mindfulness and creativity to craft sushi rolls. And this is going to leave you nourished in your body and spirit. And if you didn't know, rolling sushi is actually considered a meditative experience because you are focused, like while you are doing the rolling. So the link to join that will be in the show notes. I understand that everyone may not be able to make that. You might not be local. And if you can't, don't worry. I do have my Self-Care for Relationships collection that is available virtually, and that includes, it has a 15-page self-care for your relationships guide. And the first part is covering your relationship with yourself, which is what we're talking about today, self-love and forgiving yourself. And then it has a section on relationship with your work-life balance and asking for help. And then lastly, your relationship with others, which is setting boundaries and forgiving. It includes the workshop replay that goes along with the guide, as well as a 7-day self-care for your relationships challenge and a loving kindness for self and others meditation. So the direct link to that page will be in the show notes, or you could also find it at soulestaliving.com. So I just want to leave you with that. Self-love is a journey, not a destination. It's something that we are working on every day. But by prioritizing it, you're going to be creating a foundation for a calmer, healthier, and more empowered life. So just keep in mind that you are worthy of your own love. And whether it's through mindful cooking or just taking your reflection time and putting down what you're grateful for, or using our self-care for relationships collection, every step you take towards self-love is a step towards your best self. All right. And so now it's time for our Calm Connection Corner. I would love to hear about the ways that you incorporate self love into your daily life. So you can tag us at Celesta Living on Instagram or email us at celestaliving at celesta-co.com. And for any organizations listening, team members can also experience the benefits of self love with their focus and enhanced productivity at work. So you can subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter for more on this topic. And that is my LinkedIn is linked in the show notes as well. So thank you for joining me on this journey to living calm. If you enjoyed today's episode, I want you to subscribe so you do not miss any episodes, and share this with someone who might need more calm in their life. So let's grow this peaceful community together. If you're wondering where to start on your calmness journey, I've got you covered. Take my free Calm Compass quiz to discover which area of your life, whether that be the mind, body, home, or relationships, needs the most attention to start with. It is quick and only 2 minutes, and it will help you take the first step towards a more peaceful life. So you can take that by visiting SOULESTALiving.com or clicking on the link in the show notes. You can also leave a review, a comment, or email us at SOULESTALiving.com to be featured in our Calm Connection Corner or on a future episode if you were inspired by anything you learned on this podcast. I received a comment on YouTube last week, and so those are always fun to read. So whether it's on YouTube or Spotify, leave a comment or wherever it is that you are listening. And just remember that just like my grandmother Celesta taught me through her famous lemon cakes and resilience that inspired Celesta Living, that when life gives you lemons, make lemon cakes. Sometimes the sweetest moments come from embracing life's challenges with joy and grace. Until next time, live calm and well.